Hello, welcome to CIA News Analysis. Tomorrow's crypto news today. In our first article, which kind of goes along with yesterday's video when we're talking about big tech and censorship, Samurai BTC wallet removes security features at Google's behest for transparency policy. We see that Bitcoin wallet provider Samurai said it was disabling several security-related features in its products due to notices from Google to block the wallet. Now, they've come out and said again, we are sorry for this inconvenience, but our hands have been tied by Google. We hope to bring these features back somehow in the future in the Google Play Store release and are dedicated to offering the full feature set experience via alternative distribution methods such as direct download and F-Droid in the coming months. Now, what is it? Yesterday, we saw Coinbase colluding with their friend Twitter to attack the Gab business account at Coinbase, but then also to attack the personal account of the Gab founder at Coinbase and to keep them out of the market. And now we see Google telling Samurai BTC, you cannot enhance anonymity. You cannot enhance privacy. What is it with big tech and privacy and manipulation? What is it with them? What's going on? Let's take a look at this article here. Inside Facebook's cult-like workplace where dissent is discouraged and employees pretend to be happy all the time. More than a dozen former Facebook employees detailed how the company's leadership and its performance review system has created a culture where any dissent is discouraged. And we go down here further in the article, we can see that they say, the episode speaks to an atmosphere at Facebook in which employees feel pressure to place the company above all else in their lives, fall in line with their manager's orders, and force cordiality with their colleagues so they can advance. Several former employees likened the culture to a cult. That's right, they likened it to a cult. And that's what we see here at the top of tech. We see these weird antisocial, anti-people people who are making these big decisions, and they're ending up to be making the wrong decisions. They're taking away privacy. They're censoring free speech. They're trying to drive the narrative. By the way, they're data mining you. They have a profile on you that they take and they sell to companies who are trying to sell things to you. That's how they make money. We freely give them our information. They gather and organize that information, and then they take it and they sell it to companies whose demographics that we fit. It's unbelievable what's going on in big tech, and it's unbelievable the culture in big tech. It truly is cult-like. And when you dig down a little bit deeper, you'll find it actually does go to the spiritual level. Now, moving on, we see that the Bank of International Settlements says 70% of central banks involved with central bank digital currency research, only several have concrete plans. The article says, a new report published January 8th by the Bank for International Settlements has found that 70% of central banks worldwide are conducting research into central bank digital currency. However, concrete plans for implementation and motivations vary considerably across context. Now, the Bank of International Settlements is an organization based in Switzerland made up of 60 of the world's central banks and has to date devoted a number of major reports to both decentralized cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies. The latter are distinct from the former in that they are digital currencies issued by a central bank, whose legal tender status depends on government regulation or law. The article also says the Bank of International Settlements survey studied 63 central banks worldwide, 41 of which are based in emerging market economies, and 22 which are in advanced economies, together representing almost 80% of the world's population and more than 90% of its economic output. Of these, 70% were found to be already engaged or soon to be in theoretical central bank digital currency research, a slight increase over 2017. And what we really see here is the central bank playing the game, acting like they're behind the eight ball, trying to research and find out what are these digital currencies? What is blockchain? What is distributed ledger technology? Pretending that they don't know, when in reality, the elites who sit as the board of directors on these central banks are the very ones who financed blockchain, sold the lie of decentralization, liberty, and anarchy to these coders who truly do trust in the code. But most recently, these bankers have come back in with their big money through the Bilderberg Group and with the theological takeover, forked Bitcoin, and now we have Bitcoin Core as the leading Bitcoin project, which is not the same Bitcoin as we saw in 2017. So now we see Bitcoin going in a completely different direction, and we see the bifurcation of Bitcoin like we mentioned yesterday. It is now being institutionalized, and yes, it is still a peer-to-peer currency that offers censorship-free money and an economy that people who can't trust their own government or infrastructure can look to and have a math-based structure that they can trust and have access to that strong economy that they don't have in their own corrupt governments. That aspect is still there. But what we see are the institutions now coming in, taking over, beating Bitcoin up, moving to the next stage of their plan and institutionalizing Bitcoin, aka creating regulations, policies, and marrying it to the law. In our next article, we see European Central Bank policymaker calls crypto a fairy tale story. Very interesting. A member of the Governing Council of the European Central Bank has warned that the cryptocurrency bubble has already started to collapse. Now he says, I think we will come back a few years from now and say how we could ever have gotten into this situation where we believed this kind of fairy tale story. Well, what a hypocrite. Well, didn't we just see that 70% of central banks are doing research, representing 90% of economic output? Well, I'm pretty sure the European Central Bank is part of the 90% of the world's economic output. So what we see here is hypocrisy. We see two sides of this. And if you scroll down a little bit in the article, we see that in contrast to his statements, the European Commission Vice President stated in September that the European Union will focus on development of crypto asset classification and regulatory mapping. He said that at the time, the crypto assets are here to stay, and the crypto market still continues to grow despite recent turbulence. So we see it from every single side from the central banks. And this is just a ploy to distract and confuse. Order out of chaos, right? Make it seem like we don't know what's going on. Make it seem like the market's crazy. Anything could happen. But then out of that structured chaos, they'll create absolute order, regulation, policy, and eventually tying it to law, giving them the complete control that they're desperately after to take away all privacy and selling it to the governments because nothing will slip through the tax cracks. So again, this is just the central banks crying wolf. Yeah, they're going to experiment and pretend they're trying to figure out what's going on, but then at the same time they're going to come out and say it's a fairy tale, it's not going to work, but then at the same time they're going to come out and say that it's here to stay and it continues to grow despite recent turbulence. You're just getting it from every different angle. The whole narrative is designed to create chaos and confusion, and then out of that chaos and confusion they're going to generate order and eventually bring in their new deflationary system to replace the inflationary system, the debt-based fiat system that we work on now, which they have pushed to the point of hyperinflation. Now you say, CJ, how do you know we're moving forward with this? How can you say that? Well, if you've been here with us at CIA News Analysis, you've seen in the headlines how fast this is moving forward. And what we see here, Colorado senators file bill to exempt cryptos from securities law. Two lawmakers from the U.S. state of Colorado have introduced legislation seeking to exempt cryptocurrencies and certain digital tokens from securities laws. The move is aimed to remove regulatory uncertainty that could hold back firms offering marketplaces for tokens and others aiming to fundraise using crypto assets. Creating the Colorado Digital Token Act, they say, will enable Colorado businesses to use crypto economic systems to obtain growth capital to help grow and expand their businesses, thereby promoting the formation and growth of local companies and the accompanying job creation and helping make Colorado a hub for companies that are building new forms of decentralized Web 3.0 platforms and applications. So most importantly, besides all the big fancy words they try to use there, is that U.S. lawmakers and policymakers are drafting legislation. They're bringing forth these bills and trying to get them passed into law so that we can get through this regulatory fog and have a clear law and distinction of how to move forward handling digital currencies as an asset class in the United States of America. And we see this push not just in the United States, but worldwide. In our next article from Bloomberg, Crypto exchange takes on behemoths with physical Bitcoin futures. CoinFlex to offer contracts to Asian investors next month. The contest is heating up to gain market share in one of the most closely watched products in the world of cryptocurrencies, physically delivered Bitcoin futures. While the owner of the New York Stock Exchange is expected to start offering such contracts shortly, and Iris Exchange LLC plans to follow, the firm says that it was first to market, has spun off from its previous owners, and will provide the derivatives on some of the largest digital coins to Asian retailers beginning next month. Now we know that the owner of the New York Stock Exchange, ICE, Jeff Sprecher, and CEO of BACK, Kelly Loeffler, they're targeting January 24th for their launch. We've covered it on CIA News Analysis. BACK is going to have to miss that target date. January 24th is going to be pushed back, and they did tell us at the end of last year that they would come out in the first or second week of January and update us on that new target date, of course pending the CFTC decision on whether or not BACK can act as its own clearinghouse and therefore settle these Bitcoin delivered contracts. Now, Bitcoin delivered contracts are a big deal because right now futures contracts are settled in cash, which of course adds no liquidity or volume to the Bitcoin network. But Bitcoin settled contracts will absolutely increase daily volumes and liquidity within the Bitcoin network. This is not only huge for the United States with what BACT has to offer, but now we see the rest of the world catching up, and Iris Exchange LLC as well as CoinFlex are going to be offering these Bitcoin settled contracts. There's a lot going in the market right now, guys. There's a lot going on in the world right now. This is one of the most important times in our lives. We got big tech working together, colluding with people like Coinbase and probably other big exchanges as well. And we got them working to censor information, to control the mainstream narrative, to take away companies and people's right to invest in cryptocurrencies. I think that's the opposite of helping it go mainstream, right? And then we see that these big tech companies, they're operating in a cult-like workplace. They have a culture within the workplace that is cult-like. It is very weird, and if you go look deeper into it, it is spiritual. At the same time, we have the Bank of International Settlements and these central banks coming out, pretending not to know what digital currency is, pretending not to know if it's going to work, and then having their little cronies come out and say hypocritical things. One of them says it's a fairy tale. The other one says that it's doing well and it's here to stay. Just trying to confuse you and create order out of chaos. That's their mantra. Finally, we see politicians moving forward at a fast pace. We saw Ohio accepting Bitcoin. We see Arizona legislating to accept Bitcoin. We see Colorado moving forward to exempt from Digital Securities Act. Things are moving forward fast. Now and for the next 6 to 9 months is going to be the best opportunity to pick up Bitcoin, especially if the CFTC gets denied and especially if the ETF gets denied. If we get that double negative, you're going to see the best opportunity to buy Bitcoin within this cycle. And before we get to that next cycle, you'll never see it at these prices again. More on those cycles in our upcoming release of our Cryptonomics report. Lastly, not only are we moving forward in the United States, but we're moving forward all across the world. With BACT in the United States of America, with CoinFlex in the Asian markets, with IrisX in the other markets. We have all these companies who are bringing these products to the market at the same time, probably by design. And what we will see is increased liquidity within Bitcoin, increased daily volumes in Bitcoin, which I believe results in increased demand on Bitcoin, which of course is one of the biggest variables of price factor. So there's a lot going on in crypto, guys. Stick with us here at CIA News Analysis, and we're going to help you survive and thrive through the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. Thank you for joining us on CIA News Analysis, and thank you for your support.